document, check which O patch version that patch needed. So if you have the O patch less than the version which they recommend, so then you have to download O patch also of that particular version of little than that and replace the existing O patch. Just move the directory, old directory to its some other name and replace that with the new O patch version and then bring down the instance. Okay, so this is important. Whenever you apply the patch, you have to make sure that all the Oracle services are down. Like Oracle, mainly two things: Oracle database and Oracle listener. So if you go to RAG, there will be other extra services. So all the services you have to bring down, and then you have to apply the patch using the OPatch. So OPatch, before applying the patch, you can check the conflicts if any conflicts are there with sometimes what happens, there will be some conflicts. Okay, so directly if you apply the patch may fail due to the conflict. Okay, so what you have to do, so you have to check the patch conflict. Okay, if it returns nothing like no failures or no dependencies, then you can go with the OPatch approach. Okay, so once the OPatch apply is done at the OS level, so what you have to do, so bring up the database and run the data patch. And then the final important thing is check the invalids. Okay, so if you have any invalids, run the UTL orchestrator. So the invalid objects count in the last session I told, like take the invalid count before the applying the patch also. Okay, that is good thing, because even after applying the patch, if you see that invalid objects, so you have to make sure that those invalids are not because of the patching. So those are due to some other dependencies. Okay. So next, coming back to the performance tuning. Okay. So in the performance tuning, so we discussed at the query level, if you get any issues, how to find out the session like SID by from $V session, how to get the SQL ID and how you can check the plans. Okay. So by seeing the plan, you can understand, okay, whether it's using the index or not, and creating some indexes. Yes. So next is, if the issue is at the complete database level, okay, so how you do that? So sometimes what happens, not one user, all the users are complaining that their queries are running very slow. Okay. So in that case, it's not the problem of a particular query. It's not the problem of the statistics on a specific table, or it's not the problem whether index is existing on the table or not, because it's not the it's not the issue for a particular user or particular session. It's a overall database issue. So the issue may be at the high level. So how you can identify that? How you can see the basic information of the database? How your database? First, you need to know how your database is performing. Overall database. Okay. So for that, you have a report called AWR report. So automatic workload repository, AWR rpt.sqr. So you see Oracle home, DBMS, admin, UTL, AWR rpt.sqr. AWR means automatic workload repository, rpt report.sqr. So this will be in our DBMS admin directory. Okay. So now you run this. So when you run this, the first thing is it asks, the report can be in a HTML format, it can be in a text format, it can be like active HTML. Okay, so basically better you go with the HTML format, which is very clear to read. Okay, so text format, it won't be that much means that much easy to read. Okay, so better you can go to HTML and you can see if you don't give any input here, the default will be HTML format. Okay, so what I'll do, I don't do any input for this. So it is asking what type of report you want, whether HTML text or active HTML. So if I just hit enter without giving any value, so what it says, it will go with the default HTML format. That specified is HTML. And then it gives the information, what is the database name, what is the database ID, what is the instance name, container name. So this is equals to the container concept. Next, it will give how many instances, same information. Next, it will give enter value for length of this. Okay. Review. Let me take 3 days. So here you can see when I gave number of days as 3, so it gave the information like snap ID and time. Okay, snap ID and time. So snap ID and time. So you can see that information. Okay. So let me open. So when AWR is nothing but automatic virtual repository. Yeah. So when you create your database, okay, so there will be one background process called M1 memory monitors. Okay. So what this background process? So this is the background process. What this process will do means this will collect, this will take a snapshot. Snapshot means it will just take the how your database workload is there at that particular time. So it will take collect some information and it will store that information in few tables. The tables which starts with DBA underscore hist tables. We call that as a history tables. Okay. So, and by default, it will collect. Okay. There will be a retention. Okay. And there will be a interval. Okay. So interval means for every 1 hour, for every 1 hour, by default, it collects the information and the retention period by default is 8 days. So after 8 days, it will remove that older than 8 days information, it will be deleted that. Okay. So here every 1 hour it will take one snapshot information and then it will give some ID called snap ID. Okay. So for that information. So here if you see snap ID, it is asking for these are the snap IDs. So what I'll do, pick one snap ID. So let me give 104. Then end snap ID. I'll give 105. Okay. So this time and this. Okay. So October 3rd, 7:40 to 8:30. Okay. So then what I'll give, report name, you can give any name or else the default it will give some name like this. So I'll go with the default one. Now it will generate the report. Okay. Exit. Where it generated a home Oracle desktop. So what I will go here, home. Okay. This thing. Here is my editor. So HTML format. So here you can see this is how the HTML AWR report looks. So here you can see ORCL, database name, database ID. Okay. So it says begin snap ID, end snap ID, and what time the snap IDs are. And it will give at 7:42 how many sessions are there on my database, and at 8:30 how many sessions are there. So begin and end. So here the sessions got, okay. So yeah, so if you see here, okay, this is the first thing you can see, and the important information you can get here. Okay. So what is that information you see there is what is the elapsed time? Elapsed time is nothing but the snapshot, end snapshot, and begin snapshot. What is the difference between the two? Okay, so for 40 minutes, I took this date information. And here in the DB time, you can see 0.14 minutes. Means during that 1 hour time, okay, only 0.14 minutes is used from the database. Means there is no activity itself. You can say 0.14 minutes means it is very, very less. Okay, in seconds. Okay, so because I don't have any load on my database, I did not do anything during the time. So that's why it says 0.14 minutes. Okay, sometimes you see, okay, in real environment, what you see is in 48 minutes, you can see like 200 minutes of the DB time. So how the DB time is calculated? So you may be wondering like in 30 minutes or 40 minutes, how the DB time can go beyond that. Okay. So it depends on the number of sessions connected to the database. Let's say in that 30 or 40 minutes, 200 sessions connected, and each session used one minute. Means they have done, each session has done some work for 1 minute. So total how many sessions? 200 sessions. And each session how much? Just an assumption. So each session 1 minute use. So with that you'll get like 200 minutes. So in 40 to 45 minutes, okay, you can have DB time more. Okay, 200 minutes means during that time there may be a high activity, more sessions connected, more activity happening on the database. So that is the first thing. If you see less like this, so there is no activity itself on the database, not much activity. Okay, so this is the first thing. Means during this time there is no issue at all. Okay. And one more thing, you have to when you analyze the AWR report, usually you have to take two AWR reports. Okay. Why two AWR reports means always you have to compare the AWR report. With one AWR report, you cannot say that whether your database is good or bad. Okay. So let's say user complained today, okay, in the afternoon, like 2 to 3, user faced the issue. All users, not a one. So then what you do is better take the AWR report for yesterday also during that same time, 2 to 3. So how do you take? Run the AWR report, do the snap IDs. So you have the time and snap ID. Okay. Just a second. Okay. So view the run the AWR report and view the snap IDs for yesterday and compare. Okay, today and yesterday's and see. So every activity you have to compare. Every section you have different sections in this. So you have to compare from the time when it was performing well and the time when it is performing bad. Okay, so you have to compare. So when it is performing good, what is the load on the database? When it is performing bad, what is the load? So let's take an example. Like today, we have 51 sessions and 48 sessions. Let's assume that my database is bad today. Okay. So yesterday, you see the sessions are 10 sessions, 10 starting and ending, maybe 10 or 12. So first thing is you can understand that today the number of sessions connected to the database are high, right, compared to yesterday. So that is the first thing. Obviously, when the sessions increases, the usage of the databases resources also will increase, right? Because some session is doing something on the database. So obviously, so due to that, okay, due to high workload, maybe two, 3 sessions is increasing may not cause issue. But let's say you are daily only 10 sessions are running during that time. But suddenly one day the number of sessions increase from 10 to 50 or 100. Maybe your database is not configured to take that many number of sessions, the workload. So you can see from here, okay, so daily 10 sessions, okay, but today it increased to 50 or 100 sessions. So means the workload, the number of connections to the database is increased. So obviously when you see the number of sessions connected, so you next thing is you check here how much daily time is during that time used by your sessions. So if you see more, let's say maybe yesterday the DB time is 30 minutes. Okay, today it may be like 3 hours. So it means the number of connections and the activity happened on the database is high. So it's not normal. So it's not the database issue, means it's the issue. Obviously, whenever the number of sessions increases, so obviously the performance may not be similar, right? Because you designed your system maybe to take only 10 or 20 sessions, but suddenly it increased to 50 or 100. So it's not the fault of yours. So your database only takes that number of sessions, but the number of sessions you are giving is high. So which the database cannot take. Okay. So you should ask the application users. So why, what is the reason why the number of sessions increased? Any new thing is introduced in the database. So those type of questions you need to ask, because as a DBA, you haven't changed anything. The database is same. You haven't changed anything. The only thing is the change happened at the application side, and they are giving the, just a second.